Welcome to this new video of digital painting with Krita. In this case, I have one of my favorite subjects, it's brush making. So I am brush making lover. I love to make brushes because it's very exciting to see the behavior that we can achieve just tweaking some parameters. If you are like me and like the brushes a lot and want to learn how to create your own brushes, modifying that we have already or create them by scratch, stay with me because this video is going to be very informative because we are here to learn. Okay, so welcome to this video and let's go and master the brush making. Krita has been coded to work with modular brush engines. That means each brush engine has its own options and features. And don't be scared because we normally don't use more than 2 or 3 while painting with basic brushes. Here you can see them and we will analyze them more in future. Nowadays we have 16 and you can play with all of them. The modular system is very good because it allows the Krita team to go faster in development. To be more confident while making brushes, here you have the brush editor isolated. You can see the 6 main areas where we manipulate parameters, sensors, curves. You will see it in real time in this video. And also you can open separately the scratch pad to test very fast your brushes and also create brush previews and the preset chooser to filter the brush engines, delete contents and create brushes from scratch. Yes, this is what I call Krita's heart. One important note about brush making is that your hand position is important to see the brush behavior, so always test brushes in these positions. When you paint with the tablet, you use the pressure to control the opacity of your brushstrokes. That means that you can control how opaque you see your color, applying more or less pressure. Also, Krita can use the speed of your brushstroke to modify the brush behavior. Tilt tablets are more expensive, but they have tilt direction and tilt elevation, so you need to know how to control your brushstrokes better. And there are some stylus that can handle the stylus rotation like we could do with a real brush or maker in real life. You can see here what is a brush. A brush is a brush tip or mask that is controlled by the options. So we first decide what are the shape that we're going to use. That can be used an image or can be used a parametric brush, which in Krita is called the auto brush. The shape is controlled by parameters. The second thing we do with the brush is to say what I want to modify, which is called the options. And we have a lot of them, but don't be scared because if you know what do you want to modify, then you only have to select this in the options sections. Then you select the sensors or how I am going to modify it. Then you can select the pressure, for example, or another sensor if you want to control the brush stroke in a different way, like speed, like tilt direction, tilt elevation, or time, fade, wherever. You will see how this works in a minute. Then each sensor is controlled usually by the sensor's curves. So we can control very accurate the brush with these curves. You will see this also in a minute. This is basically what is a brush. There is something more. You can use a masked brush, which is really useful if you want to create complex behaviors. Then we have the pattern, and pattern gives you the texture feeling. If we want to create paper, if we want to create any surface, is controlled usually by the pattern. Finally, we can add thumbnail, and thumbnail is optional. You can use the thumbnail creation that is implemented already in Krita. It's full of features, so it's really easy to create an icon, or you can create a separate image and then add it to your brush in the moment you save the brush. Okay, let's go with the brush making, and I'm going to explain everything I do to create my own brushes, or the brushes I create for Krita. So for me, it's important to have here two more sliders. Let's go for them. Configure toolbars, and I look for the slider. I have talked about this previously, so I don't want to spend too much in this. In the brushes and stuff, select the option, and these are selected, and now I look for the clear and done. Okay, you can see how they are added in my UI. Now I have the size, opacity, flow, and pattern. I can change this like pressing the plus button, change the size here or wherever you want, sorting these parameters. So now let's go to the brush editor, and we are going to make an overall view. So if I go to the brush editor, I can see that I have four main sections: the general, colors, the textures, and the masked brush section. You can see I can collapse each category if I don't want to have everything open and I want to start learning just the general category, for example. If I go to the brush tip, you can see I can select three different types of brush tips. I can use an auto brush tip, which is generated with parameters, so the shape is not always static, but I can modify the shape just by playing with these parameters. And you can see the effect in the preview area. I can also use the predefined, which are images that we have previously loaded, and also you can use text. Yes, you can use text. Normally we use the auto or predefined, and auto is the fastest brush tip that you can achieve in Krita. But if you want to achieve a more complex behavior with your shape, you need to use the predefined. To understand the curves, you need to know that we have an input, which is the pressure, and this is the output, is the result of that pressure. And the curve is telling you what is the value that you are going to have. Because now in the half of the pressure, I'm going to have half of the in the output, in the opaque or transparent effect. And now in the 25%, I have this value, it's a 25. But if I start tweaking this, you can see how at the same level of pressure, my result is going to be different, because now I have 11% of the output in this value at the 20% of pressure. If I go here in the 50%, I have 50%. And if I want to clamp values with the pressure, because I don't like to press too much, I clamp these values like this, very, very usual. Okay, so during this period of pressure, you will have pure opaque brush strokes. Okay, so what this slider is doing on my brushes. Now I'm telling that the size is controlled by the strength. So if I have a brush that is 100 pixels, I go to the size, and now I have 100 pixels. As you can see here, I can create the brush stroke is 100. If I go to here and go to the strength, I can reduce this to a percentage. Okay, so now you can see that I'm reducing to a half. And this can be combined with the curves, because if I enable pen settings in this point, now I don't have 66%, but I have a 33%. You have to take this in mind, because it is useful to control the hue, or control the pattern effect in the strength, or control other things that gives you a lot of control above your brushes. And this is much better than a slider, because you have control in any part of your curve. You can create impressive effects with this. Wow! A nice feature since Krita 5 is that we can have the brush editor detached from the upper part of the UI. So you go to this button and select the Detach Brush Editor, and you can place on your second monitor or wherever you want in the interface. That has the advantage that you can use multiple colors, select a brush like this and select with another color, and it's one thing that you can do in the scratch pad. I would like to have this feature here too. Opacity controls how much transparent or opaque is your brush stroke. If I apply low pressure, you can see how my brush stroke is like glazing. But if I apply big pressure, you can see how it's opaque, like wash, for example. You can control the opacity here in the slider, and this is the maximum opacity. So if I make a very strong pressure, I can reach the full opaque that I had before. Now let's see the behavior in flow parameter, because if I select this brush, which is called the Bexy 3 Flow, I can increase this to 100% and reduce the opacity of the background to see more clearly the effect. And you can see that if I make low pressure, I get this, but if I make big pressure, I get full opaque. You see that the stroke is overlapping the opacity of the brush tips, and that is because the flow has in mind the opacity of each brush tip instead of the entire brush stroke. Now let me show you really fast why flow is different from opacity. If I select opacity and I put this in 100% but with no sensors active, I get this. In the same brush stroke, I get full opaque color. If I reduce to 50, I get this in the brush stroke, and I get this in the single brush stroke. And now I'm going to use the flow. As you can see, this is deactivated, so no sensors in opacity, but I active the flow. And now let me show you how the flow works, because with no sensors, you can see that very fast I get the opaque color. And if I reduce to the 50% in the same brush stroke, it takes more time and you can see the overlap, the grungy effect. If I reduce to the 20% in the same brush stroke, you see how it takes more time to arrive the color. And if I reduce to almost nothing, you can see that I have to pass over my same brush stroke again and again until I reach the opaque color. And that is the main difference between the opacity and the flow. And one interesting trick is that I can convert any brush to this kind of overlapping effect, just tweaking the opacity and flow. For example, let me choose this brush. It's creating this opacity effect. You can see I am overlapping the same with the same pressure. If I disable the opacity in the pen settings, I want to control the transparency in the brush stroke with the flow effect and with the curve like this to be more sensitive to the beginning of the stroke. And now I have a totally different effect. You can see the grainy effect like we have in this kind of overlapping brush strokes. Are you enjoying this content? Because I have planned to cover all the parameters more deeply with more real examples, and I would like to know if you are interested to go deeper with the brush editor or explain the brushes that we have already. If you want to, you choose. Let me know in the comments what are you interested in. And now let's continue with the video. Okay, now let me show you how you can create your own brushes really easy and really fast. Because maybe you are playing with a brush like this and you create a masked brush and you say, what weird, I'm going to add more interesting things, and you can activate the rotation controlled by Fuzzy Daf and remove the pressure, and you get this. Okay, very easy brush. And then activate the hue and go to the Fuzzy Daf and reduce this to not too much variation, so you have something like this and you want to save it. So go to the save new brush, and then you can load existing thumbnail, which is the icon that we have right now. We can create the icon preview with the scratchpad thumbnail, but basically we don't have anything. So if I want to get this, I can use it because I go here, load the scratchpad, and I have this. Also, we can use a load image from previous made image or load from icon library, which is what we are going to do. In this case, we're going to look for this, which is common. Maybe you see a lot of color variation, or is your favorite, put 1 star or heart, whatever you want. I use this for my sketching brushes and more emblems that you can add to Krita. So maybe in this case, I click OK, and then I create my brushstroke here. So give it a name, basic to opacity color, and remember that Krita uses the alphabetical order. So I save and I have my brush right here. If I want to add a tag, right click and add a tag, maybe for detail, paint or whatever. And that's it. This is how you saved your brushes. Imagine you want to create a little modification. So you don't want to create a new brush. So what can you do? Imagine, for example, I am using this brush. I see my tablet is not creating a soft beginning in the brush stroke. So I go here to the opacity and I reduce this, lower this value to create a more soft transition. I usually reduce this just to protect my device because I want to use not too much pressure when I am painting, to protect my wrist and my fingers. And if you are using a screen, maybe this is useful for you, just let me know in the comments. So you have this small tweak and you then go to the override. And then Krita is asking you, what do you want to do? In this case, we are going to leave it as it is because it's a minor modification. I click on save. And now you can see that it's saved. And if you want to create brush from scratch, then you have to open this panel, just pressing here in this little arrow, and then go to the plus icon and you select the brush engine you are going to work with. Maybe you want the pixel brush engine, and this is the default preset. So I can modify to start tweaking the values and create my own brush, and then save the brush, okay? Because if I change this brush from another, maybe to compare, then I lose my brush because I can recover what I was doing. So be careful, don't change your brushes while you are creating brushes from scratch. This is very useful if you want to test the initial state of a brush engine, because all the brushes started from a brush engine, but they are modified to create different effects. I hope this helps. Yeah, that's cool, but how can I create my own patterns? Okay, now let's go with a funny thing, because we can get chromatic brushes with a lot of color. So by default, this brush has no variation in color, but we can create more funny effects if I activate the hue and then go to the fuzzy depth and activate 2 and remove the pressure. Then I can play here and you can see the effect. Totally crazy and beautiful. I love color. But it is not only beautiful because I can use this for other purposes, because if I activate the wrap mode, I can fill the gaps and I have a very good way to play with textural effect for clothing. If I go again and deactivate, this is perfectly tileable, so I could use this as a texture to create a surface. To do that, I will go to here and I will use the adjust and go to the HSB adjustment, and then I can control the saturation here in the lightness, and this is not really appealing. If I select, for example, a value, you can see a very edgy effect in some parts of the image. And also, if I want the perceptual feeling, I can use the Luma. So you can see the variation. If I click OK or create a filter mask, to have this in non-destructive way, non-destructive mode, you can see that I have a perfect tileable surface. If I make zoom, you get the effect. Okay, nice. And if you want to go further, you can go to the filter and look for the edge detection, and activate the top edge. Don't move anything and create a filter mask. This is very good because it is non-destructive. We can recover that we have created before. And also we can activate with F3 or with the properties, the parameters in the filter. Okay, so you can select, for example, simple, subtle, and see the different effects you can achieve. Maybe you don't like the top edge effect, so you can change to the bottom, you can choose to the left or whatever. If we have a fill layer, like in this case, we can reduce the opacity and we see this effect, and you can see your paper done. Isn't it cool? There are a lot of different things that we can talk about. Masked brush, the pattern features, and much more things that we can discover together. I would like to see your energy, your good feedback about this material. And don't forget that you can support Krita, because nowadays is really needed to create stable development and to see more features in the software. And that's all for now. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.